Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I've got Magneto Alex on with me, and we're going to be asking Manda-LORE himself some questions about how he got into Star Wars, the expanded universe, maybe some of the behind the scenes of his YouTube channel as well. It's an absolute honor to have you on today, so thank you for making the time for us.
Yeah.
No,
it's
been
all good.
watching
Thanks
your
for
channel
having me.
for many years, so it's pretty surreal to have you on.
Oh, thank you. No, it's fine. I love doing this stuff. I love going on podcasts. I meet so many cool people. Like I was telling you before the stream, meeting Brian from Barb's Basement, and it's just like, yeah, like everybody I've met and like done podcasts with have been chill. So
Yeah.
I normally, like, anytime anybody wants me to come on, I'm like, yeah, I'll do it, sure.
Well, we appreciate you for coming on. The first thing that we really where we begin our journey is long before your channel. At some point, you found a love for the Star Wars universe, and so we wanted to know how you got into Star Wars, what your first memories of it were.
So I was kind of a latecomer. I'm not like super late. I was about like 6 or 7. My dad was like, I think at this time Attack of the Clones hadn't come out yet, but Phantom Menace was already out. My dad was like, oh, I think it's time for you to see Star Wars. So, and it was something I'd been like tertiarily asking for a while, because my stepbrother at the time, he was like super into it, and he'd make all these references and I'd have no idea what the heck he was talking about. So, yeah, my dad sat me down and we watched 4, 5, and 6 on VHS. And then Phantom Menace, I don't think was out yet. Like, it wasn't out on VHS, or I think DVDs were starting to become a thing at that time too. But I think we got Attack of the Clones on DVD, but I think we had Phantom Menace for VHS.
Right.
And anyway, but yeah, we saw those, and then I unfortunately never got to see a Star Wars movie in theaters. That's like one of my biggest regrets. Because by the time Revenge of the Sith came out, I was like, I was super into Star Wars. I had all the Legos, I had comic books, and I had like action figures and toys. And I was like 10 years old at the time when it came out. And if you recall, Revenge of the Sith was PG-13.
Right.
So my dad did not allow me to see it.
The only one of the original 6, right?
Yeah. Yeah. My dad did not allow me to see it. And yeah, I was so upset. My mom felt bad for me and got me the novelization, which I was like, I was like, this is fine, but I wanted to see the movie. And it's funny because like 10-year-old me like didn't give a crap about the novelization. I wanted to see the movie, and now adult me is like, wow, the novelization's way better than the actual movie.
Yeah,
so it's funny how those things contrast.
So really your first exposure to the EU was kind of an apology for not being able to see the film.
Well, at the time, I didn't even really know what the EU was. Like, I had like a couple offhand comics, and I had, I had like like the action figures and stuff.
Yeah.
Actually, I only really had one comic, and that first comic that I had came in a pack with one of the action figures. It was one of the Star Wars Republic comics. I think it was like the second one in the Jabim arc. Right. And it had Anakin, and it had the assassin droid.
Yes.
And so that was kind of like my first like foray into the EU without even really knowing it. It wasn't until I was in like 6th or 7th grade, so I was like 12 or 13, that I was reading the Republic Commando novels, and then I was like midway through 000 when it began clicking with me. I'm like, oh, okay, so this is, I can't remember which part it was, but I was like, this is referencing something I've read elsewhere. And I was like, wait a second, is this all supposed to be like one big universe? So that was like my kind of like realization that like, oh yeah, everything you read and watch is, because I remember they made a in that novel they made a reference to the 2003 Clone Wars series too, which
Yeah,
I
right.
had seen on TV being a kid watching Cartoon Network, which
classic show.
which is weird now that Cartoon Network's not a thing anymore.
I
Yeah.
know.
I was like,
That's how you know we're getting old.
I've been watching that since I was in diapers. So,
It feels so sad that there's going to be a generation of kids who don't grow up watching Cartoon Network.
yeah. But anyways, that was like my first like realization that all of this is connected. And then I started like getting the essential guides and like and then through the essential guides, excuse me, that's how I discovered some like other EU stuff, because I'm like, oh, there's this whole stuff that happens like after Return of the Jedi that I didn't know about, because at that time all of the media was really focused around the prequels, because the prequels were coming out and Revenge of the Sith was gonna cap off the trilogy. So yeah, that's like, it's through the essential guides that I found more expanded universe material, and then I started getting into like what happened after Return of the Jedi, and it was just surreal, you know.
First step into a larger world.
Exactly, precisely.
Do you remember which essential guides these were? Were these the first ones from the 90s, or the second wave that came in the?
It was the second wave
in the mid 2000s.
Yeah, like the essential chronology, essential chronology, which came out in like 2006.
With the updated word in there. Yeah.
Yeah, and like it was cool because it had like KOTOR and
the art was really good in that book.
Yeah, and like Tales of the Jedi, and then went all the way up and included the prequel stuff, because the other essential chronology didn't. Yeah, and then I think it went up to like the beginning of the
Dark
Swarm
Nest.
War.
Yeah, that sounds
like,
right to me.
Right after NJO.
Yeah.
Because that was all there was. I think Legacy of the Force was just starting to come out at that time.
Yeah, because that was like 2007, 2008 that started up. Probably just after that, yeah.
So
those reference guides really were starting to connect the dots that you'd been aware of with Republic Commando. Now, you said you were reading the Republic Commando novels. Had you discovered the game first before getting into those books?
Yeah, I remember my friend and I, he was my neighbor in our apartment complex that we lived in. He introduced me to the Battlefront games. So he brought this was back when if you wanted to play multiplayer on a game, you had to go over to somebody's house with your PS2 controller, and then you sit and play a game together. So he brought the first Battlefront over, and then when Battlefront 2 came out, we both got our parents to get it for us. And then he was showing me like, oh, there's this other cool game called Republic Commando, and we watched all of like the dev stuff. Like we'd log on my mom's computer and look at all like the development videos and stuff on the website. So yeah, I got into the game first. I didn't have an Xbox. I was a PlayStation kid. So I had to go over to my friend's house who had the Xbox to play it. And this was like the OG Xbox, not the 360. So
yeah.
And yeah, and then when I learned that there was books, and I had read a couple of the Halo books too, because I got into Halo, because that was the other game my friend and I would play. It was Combat Evolved.
Were those ones written by Denning? Because I know Denning wrote some of the Halo books.
He wrote later.
Oh, he wrote later ones? Okay.
Yeah, actually, Karen Travis also wrote some of the
that's right.
Halo books,
the Kilo 5 trilogy.
Yeah. I don't remember. It was the first three. It was like
Eric Nyland.
Strike. Yes, okay. Yeah. Those were the books I started with, and then I was like, oh, there's Republic Commando books too. So I got into those. And it's kind of weird. They're kind of set up similar. If you look at like even the font for some of the chapters, I'm like, this looks vaguely, Halo-esque. But
yeah, they were very similar.
but
Similar
yeah,
kind of setup.
those were my
Definitely.
first like EU novels that I got into, and then the comics came later.
Right. And so when you eventually got into some of those novels and comics, like you alluded to, events from Tales of the Jedi taking place in that new essential chronology being referenced and stuff. So you'd eventually find the stuff that you'd learned about perhaps previously in the guides, right?
I had trouble finding like some of the Tales of the Jedi comics because they were a bit older, and because they were a bit older, they were a bit more pricey at
unfortunately
like the comic book stores back when comic book stores still existed. I never see them anymore. And some kid that doesn't have a job, it wasn't like something I could easily obtain. So it was easier to obtain the comics that were just coming out at the time. But later, as things on the internet started getting better, I was able to find websites and digital comics. I could go and read those old comics. So yeah.
And so as you were getting into the expanded universe, which era did you gravitate towards the most particularly? Which set of stories?
The prequel era, and then I really, as with the Republic Commando novels, I really gravitated towards the Mandalorians, obviously.
Yeah.
No, I had no idea.
I had no clue.
Like, wouldn't have known if you didn't tell me.
Like to the point, like when I was like, "Oh man, I want my own set of Mando armor," and then as soon as I got my first paycheck as an adult, I'm like, "I'm gonna buy some Mando armor."
That's amazing. And so that
is quite incredible
with Republic Commando with Travis's series there.
Yeah,
of course.
Those were pretty much my first books. Like those were I would read those. I'd read the Halo books, and then the Bionicle books I was really into.
Bionicle you're into.
Yeah.
That's so 2000s. Oh, it makes me feel
it was very 2000s.
Oh man, I remember Bionicle.
I had all of them. I'm actually really mad because my mom threw them out when I was in high school. And I was like, "Mom, you have no idea how much those are worth now."
Yeah, they cost a pretty penny now.
Yeah. Oh, they don't make them anymore. So I don't even think they make half of those Technic pieces anymore.
No, I don't think so.
But
yeah. So,
but it's really cool you got in with Karen Travis though, because she's very much kind of like the maybe it's too much to say, but she's very much the Tolkien of Mandalorians in terms of creating their language and their culture. She had some of the biggest parts of that. Her and Abel G. Pena and I guess Kevin J. Anderson and Tom Veitch.
Yeah. No,
really crafted the culture, fleshed it out.
She created a whole language, a whole culture. It's funny. When I was doing one of my videos, it's not a really well-known video. It didn't do well. It was I was going to do a whole video series about like historical influences in Legends. And the first episode that came out, first and only episode, was about the Mandalorians. And I was hard pressed to figure out like where exactly she got, like, because in none of her journals or anything that I was reading, or blogs rather, did she say that like where she got the influence for the actual language from. And I came extremely close to emailing her once to see if I could get some answers, but I chickened out. But that's like one of my biggest regrets, is that I never emailed her to figure out where the hell she got the idea for like how the language is supposed to sound, like what kind of words would be in it. She says culturally they're based off of the Celts, but doesn't really give us any more. So maybe Gaelic, but I don't want to sit there and assume,
Yeah. It's really cool because I feel like when in various fictional universes, when the creators go to such extremes as to create entire fictional languages for characters, or for rather species or factions, Tolkien had
Much
the
like in
elves.
Star Trek.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Star Trek had the Klingons.
Klingons,
Star Wars
yeah.
has the Mandos, and so it's
Yeah.
really cool because people really gravitated towards these various cultures. So you have huge fans of the Elvish customs and culture. You have huge fans of the Klingon customs and culture, and then like yourself, we have a ton of Star Wars fans who really try to live that Mando lifestyle, which I think is so cool. How you just putting that extra effort in, just make something so cool that people just live and breathe this stuff. It's really cool.
Yeah, no, it is really cool.
Side question that's not important to you, but now that we had mentioned it, I want to ask you: do you also like Star Trek?
I have not really been exposed much to Star Trek.
Okay.
The only, let's see, my friends have tried.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't like I didn't like hate it or anything. I was just like not super interested. Like, my only real exposure is like once I was flipping through the channels and I saw like a World War II show, and this is back with like older TVs. So I was like, oh, is this Band of Brothers? Because that was on HBO at the time. So I was watching it, and then I'm like, oh, okay, well, this guy's got like ridges on his forehead. I don't think this is Band of Brothers. It turns out it was Star Trek. It was one of the holodeck episodes, and I was very confused.
Yeah, that's holodeck episodes do that. Sometimes you'll tune in, think you're watching an episode of Sherlock Holmes, and then an android shows up.
Yeah,
right. I was just gonna say, since you're such a big fan of Mandalorians, I feel like if you ever got into Trek, that you would probably be a massive fan of the Klingons, because they're not exactly the same, obviously, but they have a lot of similar ideals, I guess, and virtues.
They don't have the 6 suits, though.
No, they don't.
No. That'd be cool, a Mandalorian Klingon, or a Klingon Mandalorian, rather.
That fan art
that would be interesting.
Potentially exists.
Oh, that's that has to exist. It's like I don't want to say Rule 34, but that's a completely different thing. God.
Well, I mean, what's the phrase? If it exists, there's something of it.
Yeah.
So. For better or worse.
So you alluded to first paycheck, get a Mando suit.
Yep.
What was that process like? And joining into the ranks of Mando Star Wars fans.
Well, I'm not an official member of like the Mando Mercs or anything. I've got a few friends like Zombraptor, who we talked about earlier. He's in the Mercs. He's official. Yeah. And my kit's not approvable yet. There's still a bunch of things I have to do. Like,
what are the specifications for that? I've never really delved that deep. Stringent,
not as stringent if you wanted to get into the 5.0 first, but still pretty stringent. They analyze, and this is another word I'm looking for, but I can't think of it. But yes, they're very anal about if you have like a Velcro strap showing like, that's not very swarzy, you're gonna have to hide that, or
right.
So
yeah, fair enough.
But
and
first thing I did,
do they conduct that via like videos of the equipment and the suit?
Because I looked into the process, and this was pre-COVID. I recall you had to send in a bunch of like pictures, like professionally done photos, and then submit them on the website. Like, there's a whole application page.
Quite in depth then.
Yeah. It is pretty in depth, and it's, as somebody who's super afraid of rejection like I am, I just never went and did it. And it's also because I know that there's still things I want to do. Like, I haven't done any. I've done like a little bit of weathering on my armor, but I haven't done any like black washing or anything, which is a process to make it look like it's dirty, like you've worn it out on the battlefield. And I've just been too afraid to do it, because I was like, what if I screw it up and mess up my helmet, and then I have to look like an idiot at every single con I go to?
That's fair.
But every Mando Mercs guy that I've met has been super reassuring and been like, oh, you can do it. It's, like, they're a great bunch of folks.
Yeah.
Every time I go to cons, I usually see their booths and talk to them, and I always make a friend. So they're great,
That's good.
great folks, great people.
Really cool community. But sorry, I cut you off as you were about to go into the original
Oh, yeah.
investment into the suit. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So I don't have any capabilities. At the time, I was still living in my parents' apartment, so I didn't have the capability of like making and casting my own stuff. So I bought all of the plates and stuff casted and everything. I just had to sand them, prime them, paint them, weather them, and
Still a lot of work.
yeah. A lot of the soft parts I got from like army surplus stores, like my gloves, my flight suit, and my boots. I just kind of went and grabbed rain boots from Walmart, and then I bolted my shins to it. Yeah,
Nice.
Yeah, but it's still a work in progress, even after what I've been working on it since 2014. So
Over a decade.
yeah. It's still a process after 10 years.
Well, I've always thought that your suit looks really amazing. Is what I always thought. I really loved the look of it. I always thought it was really cool, pretty distinct. I liked it. Yeah.
I've already gotten offers from the Traffic Cone Brigade, which is a subgroup within the Mandalorian mercs. That when I get approved, I can go and join them.
Nice.
Well, that's something.
Yeah, and it's just a group of orange, very brightly colored orange Mandos.
Right. That's cool.
What I forget. I'm sure I watched your video on it, but what does your colors mean for the Mandalorian?
Well, orange means a lust for life, which I think fits me because I'm pretty adventurous. Red is honoring a parent. And the backstory for Tad Larkin, which I made a video about a couple years ago.
I remember.
I made up a story of that, like Tad's father like died during like the occupation of Manda-LORE,
right?
And so that's for that. And then black is vengeance. So there's like his undersuit is black and everything. So he wants to avenge his father and avenge the Mandalorian people who have been misrepresented by Compnor.
Yeah.
Quite a bit.
Again, watch out for it.
I think the person in charge of Compnor, his name may be sound like baloney.
Yeah,
but I'm not too sure.
He's certainly full of it.
You could say his handling of the Mandos was worthy of a felony.
Yeah. Yeah.
I saw some comments speaking on that as well. Some mentionings of the retcons to Mandos in the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
And you've made some lengthy videos on that subject.
You have, and that was really the first time I discovered your YouTube channel. Well, the original one, which was named for who I think is an iconic EU character. So
Absolutely.
what was behind the creation of that channel, and what led you down to the path of TCW Clone Wars multimedia project themed videos?
So I started that channel when I was in high school. I was making stop motion Lego animation videos. I've since had to take them all down because God forbid you put Star Wars music in a Star Wars Lego video.
Yeah. Dangerous.
YouTube doesn't like that. So I still have all the original files somewhere because I worked really hard on those. I'm never going to delete those, but so that's what that channel started with. I had like a few projects from high school that I had on there too. I took those down because I had my real name.
That's fair.
And then
your real name isn't Tad Larkin?
No, it's Todd Larson. I always joke that if I ever run away and fake my own death and run away. I'm gonna be in like the Pacific Northwest somewhere chopping wood, and my name will be Todd Larson. Anyway, I lost my train of thought. What were we oh yes,
so you had school videos
Captain Porto channel, yeah. And then like high school was around about the time for me that TCW came out. Like I saw the movie in theaters with my dad and my brother.
Ooh, yeah.
I was super excited. I'm like, oh yeah, because I loved Genndy Tartakovsky's show. I loved all the comics and stuff, and I was expecting like, I guess I was expecting adaptation, not retcon.
A weird retcon / continuation because Ventress knows them already. It's a whole thing.
It's a weird thing.
I like expect you to know the 2003 one.
Yeah, like it's built on it, but also doesn't
respect it's completely separate. Yeah.
It's almost like it was originally slated to be like part of that and like to go in with it, but then just never delivered on that, and then ended up just overwriting it.
It feels like they're simultaneously acknowledging it and ignoring it all at once, which is such polar opposites.
Yeah.
But the fact that they have elements there just makes it feel like this was supposed to be more similar originally, right?
Their faces look like they did in the cartoon. They did
the character design is very the character design with the pointy beards and everything is very reminiscent of Gendy's style, and I do believe that was their original intention. But I think more and more as the show went on, it went on to be more of like a revision instead of a continuation. And it eventually just culminated into being an apology for the prequels, which I never thought needed to be apologized for. So,
because they got a lot of hate in the early YouTube days, like Jeremy Johns but
Red Letter Media,
but
I think
a lot of those were mainly complaining, more than actual criticism.
Well, a lot of the criticism
is what I wanted from the prequels,
Exactly. A lot of the criticism I do believe was valid from like a film and cinematography point of view. Because on their own, they're not great movies.
No, they're not.
They're not.
But
as
still pretty solid,
Star Wars movies, they did exactly what George Lucas set out to accomplish with them. They set up the original trilogy, and I don't think they needed to be apologized for. Nope. Like Anakin in the series acts extremely different from how we see him in the movies,
like a different person.
So that to me just screams, oh, this is revisionist. This is an apology for the prequels. It's like, oh, so this is what you expected Anakin to be, so we'll make him like that. But then it creates this disconnect when you want to watch the movies and then watch the show and then like try to bridge it in between, and it doesn't connect. It doesn't. There, these two versions of Anakin are almost two different characters.
Whereas Tartakovsky's, it fits so well with Hayden's portrayal. And I'd even be willing to accept the 2008 one, but the problem is that it also establishes that it's only a 6-month gap, which I don't see Anakin being that different in 6 months. Maybe in that final year, I could buy that.
It's a month. It's 4 weeks.
It's 4 weeks. That's even worse. Sorry.
According to the Essential Reader's Companion,
Right. Yeah.
So no, that was not a great Band-Aid from Pablo there.
But
Abel Pena would have hopefully done a better job. Maybe I always believe that if anyone could have done it, Leland Chi might have been able to solve it. But
Abel, I don't know how to say his name. I don't want to, because I've only ever seen it written. I read Skywalker's. I think he did a fantastic job.
Me too. That's a phenomenal story.
Fantastic. It's the perfect Band-Aid.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a little sequel, Lone Wolf: The Tale of Obi-Wan and Luke.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That had some brilliant minor retcons in there. That tried to kind of more, rather than TCW squeezing the EU, more squeezing TCW back, and it
was just a mess. But so that's where I started putting out the videos because I was seeing what was going on in the franchise, and I'm like, I don't like this,
Yeah.
And by the time I had started the videos, I think everything had already been decanonized. But
Yeah,
I was on the forums, I was on StarWars.com. I was like, hey, does anybody else notice that they're kind of like messing stuff up here? And people would just be like, oh, shut up, and they tell me to quiet down. And it was just like, I felt alone for a while. I'm like, am I the only one that sees what's happening here? And I even recall saying in one of the forums, I'm like, they're going to decanonize the entire EU one day. Just watch it. Just watch it. I wish I could go back and find my forum post where I said that and frame it.
Oh, man. It was prophetic.
And frame it. Because I
how
saw
did
this
that
coming
affect
from
you?
a mile away.
When it finally did happen,
I
how
was
did it affect you?
angry. I was
Oh,
angry. I was extremely excited at first because 2012 happened. Disney took in the canceled Clone Wars. I'm like, okay, this is great. The show that's been ruining.
That was a good first move.
Yeah, the show that's been ruining the expanded universe for the last like 4 or 5 years has been canceled. I'm like, okay, cool. And I followed all of like the speculation with the sequel trilogy. Like before they actually announced like and put like photo stills up, like they would give us bits and pieces. They were like, okay, well, so here's what's gonna happen, like moviephone.com, like a bunch of like Facebook groups, to everybody would be speculating, oh, what are the new sequels are going to be about? And Lucasfilm would give us little tidbits of like, oh, well, Luke has a Jedi Academy on Yavin 4. So then everybody was like, oh, Jedi Academy trilogy, we're gonna get maybe we'll see why am I blanking on his name? The guy who destroyed Karita. Kip Duran. Yeah, maybe we'll see Kip Duran and like Kyle Katarn,
Mara Jade, the whole gang. Yeah.
Imagine.
Perfect world, that one.
Maybe
it was even lining up to where it could have been just set after Crucible. Because the actors were about that age, and then it just had nothing to do with that.
No, so like they released all this speculation, like, oh, Han and Leia have I don't think they specified how many children they had at that point. But yep. And
that was lining up pretty good.
Yeah, so like they were giving us all these little tidbits, so I was excited. I'm like, oh sweet, I'm gonna see some of my favorite EU stories, like,
oh man,
adapted, or at least like something, And I had even wrote a letter to Leland Chi after like the acquisition. I was like, because I remember reading an article where he said that like they were like creating the story group and everything. So I wrote him a letter and I was like, hey, you should do this, and this. You shouldn't, if you're going to reorganize the timeline, here's how I think it would, best be, like, for like ease of continuity and everything. And then I just got a letter from his secretary just being like, oh, you can't give story ideas. And I'm like, well, that's a shame that he never saw it.
At least they gave you something back.
Yeah. But I didn't open that letter for like that return letter for like a month because I was so afraid of what it would say.
Oh man.
And then I'm like, oh, well, that's just disappointing.
To the right person.
No, it wouldn't have changed anything.
No.
Then again, I'm a nihilist.
Yeah.
So.
You sound pretty positive for a nihilist.
Nothing matters. I might as well have a good time while we're doing nothing, right?
That's fair.
And the fun time that you can have while we do nothing is the expanded universe.
Exactly.
And making videos about the specifics of continuity, which is, of course, where I first came across those videos. Those videos, did you expect those videos to have as great a reception as they seem to? Because I saw everyone talking about those original videos where you compared the Clone Wars multimedia project and really pointed out all of the stuff that wouldn't fit together.
Well, I just kind of took all of the things that I had noticed over the years, arguments that I had made on forums over the years. I took all that stuff. I've got my evidence. I put it forth, and I was just like, there's my evidence. If people want to accept it, that's up to them. If they don't, whatever. Doesn't matter. If it's like, when I'm passionate about something, like, I will fight for it, and I will like be like, no, this is wrong. This isn't like this could be better.
Yeah.
But it's yeah, I don't know where I'm going with that.
I think it's admirable, how hard you've fought for the EU and made those very in-depth TCW videos, and everything you've been doing. I mean, it's just a testament to what you love and how much you're willing to.
Oh, I'm still
if not fight for
EU.
it. Yeah, exactly. It's even if it never gets continued, you're keeping the love of it alive with your channel.
More and more every day. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. The absence makes the heart grow fonder.
Exactly.
Yeah.
More and more every day with these series from Disney Plus and all that stuff, like, failing left and right. There's more and more people like looking for alternatives, and I'll be right here waiting.
And I think that's one of the greatest contributions as a whole. Is just your channel existing is it does such a good job of being like a bite-size, view into the EU for those who may not have ever heard about it. Those who are hating the new stuff coming out, they come to try to learn more about this other thing that maybe they heard about somewhere, and they find your channel and they see this timeline, these timeline videos, right? And they're able to sit through those. Maybe they go, oh my God, this sounds so interesting. And then they'll start picking up the books. And that's all major thanks to you and the hard work that you put into, putting all the information into bite-sized, understandable videos.
Yeah, I try to make it accessible to people, and I think doing it in a documentary format kind of helps with that a bit, and then doing it from an in-universe perspective makes it fun.
Oh yeah. We'll get to that.
I love the idea
shortly.
of Tad Larkin being an actual archivist. I think
historian.
Historian. I love that.
Well, he's not an archivist. He's a glorified basement dweller. No offense. No offense, man.
Oh man, I'm over here dwelling in the basement right now.
You're just sitting in his basement, just sitting there, and like, I gotta get this out. I gotta get it out. Everybody's gotta hear about it.
Sending out these transmissions because he's tired of Compnor messing with galactic history and trying to make it what they want. He's just like, nope. Here's the real history. I got to get it out there for the underground folks.
Yeah. And I think that's really a genius retcon of TCW, which was kind of alluded to in a Fantasy Flight Games RPG, where it mentions that there was Compnor reels from the Clone Wars, which sounds awfully like the TCW show without being specific. Right. I think that's such a brilliant way of retconning it.
It is and it isn't, because it kind of turns it into a choose your own adventure novel, which it's good, but that's probably the best fix for it, which stinks.
Yeah, unfortunately.
I just wish it could have been. I just wish things were different. I just wish people towards the end of the Lucas era cared.
Yeah,
you see in a lot of the new shows and stuff, there are people making those shows that do genuinely care about the stories that they're making and about the the cool visuals they're trying to put on screen. There are people that legitimately care, and I just wish that level of caring was was directed towards everything that Star Wars used to be and not what it has been and is trying to be.
Yeah. Well, that's why I keep fighting, and maybe it's a useless battle, but I don't want to do what happened to us, I say us. I didn't even join the EU till 2019 when I found out about it, or 28, something like that. But all I want is for there to be two timelines for everyone to enjoy. So maybe we just get books and comics, and that's all we get. But if we can get that, and they can still make their TV shows and their movies, that's fine. Just let us have, because we didn't get an ending. I don't think the EU needs to be continued. I think it just needs to be concluded. So if we got that, I'd be pretty satisfied. And I'll keep fighting for that till I'm dead.
There's gaps that could be bridged. There's a whole bunch of story opportunity.
Yeah.
Like, I would be fine leaving it where it is at Legacy at the end there. I think that's a solid cap. It's not like a super satisfying ending, but I think it's a good cap.
I agree. I meant more a Crucible to Legacy and filling in that
gap.
Yeah.
There's that 100 or so years of nothing, and then
because there's no real conclusion there.
No, and there's other stories that could be like the 1,000 years in between when SWOTOR, and a couple thousand years actually when SWOTOR ends, and then the new Sith Wars and all that.
Yeah.
And even though it's a time of peace, I'd have been interested in following the Sith lineage down from Bane all the way to Plagueis, what they're doing for all that time. I know that the point's kind of that they're not doing anything, but still there's
could be a lot of political intrigue in there. It can give us a Game of Thrones with Sith.
Yeah. But there's tons to still be explored, and I think that the 2 timeline solution is probably the best solution. And I would love animated adaptations of
that would be so cool.
Popular EU stories. I'd love the Thrawn trilogy animated, or that way you don't have
Jedi Order.
Or New Jedi Order. You don't have to get actors or anything. Maybe you can get Mark Hamill if he wanted to do some voice work, because he's used to that.
He's good at voice work,
yeah, but you don't have to drag live action people into it. So I think it'd be a good, not super high effort way of
Plus, they already did a show called Star Wars Visions, which is a non-canon show, but it isn't connected to Legends, which everything that was Legends was supposed to be non-canon. But here we have a show that is non-canon, but also isn't Legends.
That is a whole...
do that.
Yeah, that is the whole can of worms. That's why I like using the term expanded universe over Legends.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with the expanded universe, but I do believe that if the EU ever gets continued, it will have the Legends banner. So I try to see it as a symbol of honor now, instead of if you got the Legends banner on, and you're in for most likely a good story. Of course, there's some duds in there too, but
so
I'm trying to embrace it. I was upset with it for a while, but
there was a publication that came out a year or 2 ago. It had all of the Star Wars Insider short stories in it, but it had some canon ones in there too. But it had the Legends banner on it.
But it had the fiction collections. That was a whole controversy.
That sends an extremely mixed message, and that was my definitive. I say a couple years ago. I think it was 4 or 5 years ago at this point. That was my definitive kind of going away from the Legends. What would you call it? Nomenclature.
Yeah.
And sticking with expanded universe. I took the Legends banner off of all my videos, and I made an expanded universe banner that was similar, and I put them on all of the thumbnails of all of my videos.
Yeah. I definitely prefer expanded universe.
Same.
The banner is, of course, ugly. It's behind me here. I have a proudly mostly banner-free collection here, but the banner's just not very nice to look at, and feels a bit demeaning, of course. To have it called Legends, of course. I think a lot of us have talked at great lengths about debating the merits to the banner. If the only way we get new stories is through the Legends banner, then maybe it would be all right. But again, it's an eyesore. I always prefer expanded universe. Sometimes I title some videos Legends because some people don't know expanded universe.
Well, that's the thing too that I think is a great. I think that's a great reason too. For again, I would prefer not to have it, but we live in a world where we have canon versus Legends now, where these two things exist. So as you get more people into the EU, how are you going to make that distinction when they're trying to buy books if all of them are just bannerless, then it's like, well, how do I know what's canon, what's not? You know, I mean, they're gonna have to do a lot of research. But the banner allows them to know, okay, this is from what I want. Whereas if there's no banner, then it gets a bit more muddled and confused as to what they're supposed to read and not in terms of the Legends or EU timeline.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I'll put it in my tags and stuff, or
Yeah.
or in the video description, I'll do like hashtag Legends or something to extra tag it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just try to move away from that because I do think the nomenclature is becoming muddled.
Especially that fiction collection made it so so confusing. Like I was gonna buy them, and then I found out, wait, there's some canon stories in there. And funnily enough, one of the stories is labeled as canon, but it was originally Legends. Within the book, it's the something Blade Squadron. Blade Squadron was published a month before discontinuation of the EU, and in that original story, it says like that Insider short stories will be under a new continuity following that story. It gets super muddy because then there's sequels to Blade Squadron that mention like some new canon planet or something. So it becomes super muddy because kind of the first part was EU.
Yeah.
So
it's the same with like the Tarkin book.
Yeah.
Because that was originally, I think James Luceno originally wrote that for the expanded universe, and then had to go back and change some stuff when the buyout happened. So not buyout. It was
related to his related to Tarkin, the character specifically, his childhood, because he'd written it to connect to that one Tale short story or short comic rather that depicted his childhood. So Luceno, being the master of continuity and timeline and crossover that he always was, of course, had to weave that into his narrative, and then I guess sadly unweave it ultimately.
Yeah. But and then you have some things that are being retconned within the new continuity too. They don't like to use that term because that implies that it's not 100% perfect or whatever. But no, so then you have to wonder, okay, if one story gets entirely decanonized, where does that go? Does that go to Legends?
Yeah. Does it just get sent to
they don't have the tiers that the expanded universe had.
Nope.
So
they said it doesn't even matter now. There's one guy on Twitter, I forget, Matt Martin, I think. He goes, yeah, I mean, canon doesn't matter. I mean, it's all about your personal taste. So so they said it was going to be. I don't mean to make this a Disney bashing stream. It doesn't.
Oh no, I'm not trying to do that either.
No, yeah, I'm just saying on my end. But you know, it's a whole thing of, well, the promise was it was going to be even more connected and fit better than even the EU did, because the EU had some wrinkles after 30 years, but that's 30 plus years of continuity. Whereas you know, Disney's been around a lot less with their Star Wars stuff. But you know, then we get to the point where they go, you know what? It doesn't even matter, guys. Pick and choose what you like.
Well, they
and
made
it's like, well, then what was the point?
You know? They made the same mistake of thinking that Dave Filoni would stay consistent with their new.
It was their first mistake. Can't stay consistent with his own stuff.
He doesn't.
Grave error.
Dave Filoni lives inside his head, and that is his. He has his own continuity. He has his own Filoni verse.
Yeah.
Filoni.
Yeah.
But back to you. What is I guess your favorite era you said was the prequel era, but what is your second favorite era then?
Well, so it'll change from time to time.
That's fair.
There's so much good.
Recently I've been rereading a lot of the KOTOR comics, like with Zane Carrick. And then, as I've said before we started the stream, I was up till 5 last night playing Revan's Revenge. So like right now I'm really into like Old Republic stuff.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Obviously my campaign right now, I'm trying to conquer the galaxy as the Mandalorians, because who else?
I'm so surprised.
Yeah.
And then shocking. When I was doing my timeline stuff, my last couple timeline videos last year, I got really into like the post ROTJ era. with like going back and rereading the Jedi Academy trilogy, and then I Jedi, those books. I was getting into that era again too. So it's like the more I spend time in different eras, the more I begin to appreciate them. And then Legacy, I reread in all of Legacy, and I had not read Legacy 2 before I did the conclusion to my timeline video. I had not read it yet. So that was a new experience for me, getting to read it. And
Darth Red, underrated villain, I think.
Yeah.
He's cool. Like maybe the most not talked about Sith, who's a major antagonist, like in Star Wars. He feels very overlooked.
But he was also kind of a hero,
right?
If you think about it too,
it's so
he's trying to kill all the Sith. It's kind of a crazy thing.
Yeah,
because at first it felt like they gave us a bait and switch where they're going to do the same thing as Bane, but then at the end it was not the case at all.
He kind of brought about the Sith's destruction knowingly and unknowingly.
Yeah.
Once I got past the art style, because that was difficult to get past. But I had the same problem with Dark Empire and those early Dark Horse comics.
Right.
I wasn't a fan of that art style, but once I got past it, I was really enjoying it.
Jan Duursema, who did the art for almost all of Legacy, her style is just so beautiful that once you read any of her comics, you're just spoiled for comic art. They're like oil paintings.
Well, going back and reading the KOTOR comics, and then she did a lot of the Republic comics as well. And like I said, those were my gateway comic into like the comics area.
Republic comics are my favorite comic series of all time. Just full stop. I just absolutely love them.
I'd agree, but KOTOR exists. And
yeah,
although I'm biased because on YouTube there's another friend of ours, Revanchist, and he did some like audio drama narrations of certain portions of it.
Oh, that's cool.
And for some reason, Brennan and Marcel were insane. I don't know what's wrong with them, but they said the last time they had read KOTOR, they had heard my voice whenever they read Zane. So then they asked me to do the voice of Zane, and I was like,
that's cool.
It was pretty cool. I was quite honored. And so now they say they hear my voice every time they read it.
Yeah, Alex has ruined KOTOR for me because now I just end up thinking about him when I see Zane.
That's funny. So my wife and our friends, we do a Starfinder campaign every other week. And my character in that I loosely based off of Marn Hieroglyph. Because he's just like this con man that is just trying to make a buck at every turn.
Absolute rascal of a character, of course.
Yeah, he's one of my favorites. So
it's impossible not to like that guy. It's so good.
And I always pictured him like talking with like a New Jersey accent.
That's very valid. I can see it.
So when I do my character, he talks like this, putting unnecessary S's after everything. But
yeah, there's just so much. There's so many good eras of Star Wars, and that's really what you see when you go through your timeline videos. And we talked a bit backstage about the timeline videos, which I imagine the editing on those was absolutely immense. Which I didn't know until years later when I would try to edit my own YouTube videos how much goes into editing, and yours look way better than anything I ever produced. So you just put a lot into it, and it's very clear. So the series is incredibly amazing.
Well, I've been
really enjoyed them.
I've been evolving my format for the past couple years, so it keeps getting better and better with every video. So now it's funny, you can go back and watch the first timeline video and you can listen to the crappy audio quality and it's just like it's garbage. So eventually what I'm going to be doing, not right now, I'm taking a break because all of last year I did my timeline videos. I'm going to be going back and every couple of months or so I'll go back and I'll redo one of my old timeline videos and I'll bring it up to my current quality, which should be easier on everybody's ears and probably more visually appealing as well. And I'll probably add some information in that too. especially the first one. I already have it rewritten. I just haven't recorded it yet. Um, I add a lot of information that I wish I had added at the beginning, like different information on like how the galaxy is divided up, like how hyperspace works, little things like that. That way, my entire series can be like a kind of a guide to the universe as well.
Yeah,
definitely. So I'm looking forward to redoing those eventually, but not right now.
The presentation of them was always very appealing to me. Yeah. The style, that this is history, this has occurred, very fun. Really scratched that itch in this nerdy brain. And so I recall I've been watching them for I think we realized 8 years, something like that. It's been going. Is that right? Something about that? Yeah.
I started in like 2015, 2016.
So probably longer than that. Yeah, about 9 or 10.
Yeah.
It's been a long project. I remember when I was younger.
I was 14 in 2015.
I was 9. So I remember being a kid and on the way to we used to have a really long ride to the place I went to church. Mm-hmm. And so I would just load up your videos and just listen to the timelines.
Yeah, that's a good
way. I was on my way back and forth, and I was just living and breathing them. I'd have encyclopedias on my lap, and when I wasn't reading them, I'd be, watching your videos, and other times as well. But I just have that vivid memory of that, and so I just always loved the production, the style. It felt very thematic. It felt like something. It felt like you emulated the old Republic timelines just for the entire EU.
like that, like that
was that was the main inspiration.
You could definitely tell. Yeah,
and I try really hard to make it look like a hologram. I'm still not 100% satisfied with it, but I will keep tweaking it as I go along, and I really. Because, I do all my own thumbnails and stuff, and then I also make my own Star Wars Empire at War mods.
Very popular.
So I do a lot of like texture
live streams
editing.
Of those, right?
Every now and then, yeah.
I've seen a few of those.
The better I get with using image manipulation software like Paint.net or GIMP, I'm like, oh, okay, I need to try like fixing something with my video.
This here.
Yeah. Like, you know what? This would look really good if I did that. As I learn more things and get more plugins and stuff.
Yeah.
I will say I definitely prefer Tad Larkin, the Mandalorian, over Nostaral. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, he has a better voice, I think. Lance Henriksen.
But that's fair. But
my man Alex is dissing my other man Nostaral. I mean,
I know.
Exactly,
I love Nostaral. What's going on over here?
I wouldn't say I'm better than Nostaral.
Well, you don't have to say it. I will.
If I sounded like Lance Henriksen, I do a lot more narration.
I mean, your series is absolutely more entertaining, I'd say, because it covers more eras. So
it's more of like a promo thing for them, because that was they were releasing those like as the game was being developed.
Yeah,
and that was also in high school. I remember watching those like a hawk.
Yeah.
I always wanted to get a DVD of those released officially with just those and then the cinematics. I always thought that would be a cool.
Yeah, well, when that first cinematic dropped, I was like, "Oh, this is awesome."
Yeah,
it's to the point though. I think my problem with SWTOR, just taking away from the fact that I don't like MMOs anyway.
That's fair.
I just can't get into them. But my main problem with SWTOR is that the cinematics are so good, and then you go look at the graphics of the actual game, expecting it to be as cool looking as the cinematics, and you're like,
this cartoon.
It's so clunky by comparison.
Yeah,
it feels robotic.
Yeah,
is kind of how I would describe it.
I mean, I get
so fluid,
I get the constraints though. It's on a budget, and it was, you gotta remember, it was free to play.
With the graphics, I was gonna say the graphics capabilities back in 2009, 2010 were not that.
Yeah, they're not that incredible.
Maybe today they could. With,
yeah.
The
if they give them the money,
graphics.
but they're not. So.
Well, like if they had developed SWTOR today versus almost 15, almost 20 years ago, maybe.
Yeah,
that's
I've played
20 years ago for SWTOR. Almost.
Well, I remember seeing the trailers when I was like
my goodness,
freshman or junior in high school, which was around like 2009, 2010.
Dang.
Yeah, you're right. They're
so
coming up on 2 decades.
2025. So it might be 15 years then.
That's making me feel stressed. Oh man.
I could just not be lazy and look it up on Google right in front of me, but I'm not going to.
So it sounds like Tad Larkin is a little more. Tad Larkin does a little more research.
Yeah, sounds like.
I try to.
Dates.
I try to.
Yeah, no, your videos are absolutely phenomenal. With the timelines, it was so rewarding for me, like because I'd read a good bit of it by the time I discovered your videos. So knowing what was coming next was really fun, and the anticipation of looking forward to what you were going to cover next was really fun.
Yeah.
And I thought you did a good job navigating some particularly dense eras. That gap between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope is quite packed, just full of an assortment of stories. You know,
I had reread all of Dark Times and like some of the other comic book arcs that went with that, like what was the one with Darth Vader and
Empire and Rebellion?
Those are more Rebellion era. Those
the Darth Vader comics is rather what it is, and Purge, which were connected to Dark Times.
Dark Times, and then there was like a couple one-off comic arcs. There was one with like Tarkin's son was kidnapped or something.
That was a Darth Vader one.
Yeah.
The Ninth Assassin, Ghost Prison, and one more.
Forget the other one.
Cry of the Shadows.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
So I did the best I could to kind of like briefly like go over some of that stuff without spending too much time on it. And because that wasn't as difficult as like the Rebellion era where I had the Marvel comics to try to sift through and figure, okay, which ones are canon, which ones aren't. Because there were some that are like, oh, okay, this doesn't conflict with anything, this can fit. And there are others that are just like, this can't fit at all.
Yeah.
And, and then there are some that like parts of them are referenced by like older material, like the stuff with like Lumaya. And so I was like, okay, I'll just include, the stuff that leads to later. Things becoming important later.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, because if I don't for example, like the taking Lumaya, I'm like, if I don't reference the Lumaya stuff, nothing's gonna make sense come Legacy of the Force. So, but yeah, I think the Rebellion era was definitely the hardest because it was just so densely packed with. Material. And then there were other eras where like, okay, well, it's 1,000 years of nothing happening. What do I say?
100-Year Darkness.
So I had to explain this gap. I'm like, things happened, but like not a lot.
Yeah. And I think it's Matt Wilkins who was the first person who I heard say this, but he describes the Rebellion era as Han, Luke, and Leia didn't even have time to go to the bathroom. They were so busy.
No.
Or the refresher, rather, if we're going by Star Wars lingo. I mean, he's right. They really didn't. Yeah. It was just adventure to adventure. There were regular star hoppers during that era.
It's not the adventure of the week; it's the adventure of the day.
Maybe even the hour.
Yeah. There's just so much material there, but on the comic strips too, just
Archie Goodwin, the Marvel comics, the paper strips. Oh, there's so much. The
Then when you get into stuff like
weekly,
Wood Wars, the reboot one.
Oh god, we don't talk about Wood Wars. It's
Brian Wood's Star Wars. Yeah.
I hadn't read those, and I don't think I referenced them either.
Yeah, they're not very good.
Well, I remember them having something. I remember hearing something about them having the Nogri before they even knew the Nogri existed.
Yeah.
I think that happened.
That was a bit of a problem. I think that was also Han saw a Nogri in Honor Among Thieves as well. Mm-hmm. Or was it Scoundrels? It was one of those.
I think it was Scoundrels, because I listened to that relatively recently on audiobook, and I was like, wait a second, why is there a Nogri here?
Which, being that it's Scoundrels, makes it worse. If it was... We know that the Honor Among Thieves authors are a duo called James S.A. Corey, and they're known as big fans of the EU. They've spoken about how much they loved it. So you can maybe forgive them for being overzealous and trying to put a little connection in there. But Timothy Zahn himself having a slip up like that is a little concerning there.
Yeah, especially because then, if that's the case, then when Han and Leia and Luke are on Bamil and they're getting chased by the Nogri, they'd be like, "Oh, I've seen these guys before."
Yeah,
but yeah, it's just
Were there any other spots that were of particular difficulty for you in constructing the timeline? Any areas that were just particularly hard to establish a through line? You know, that makes sense that the Rebellion era was absolutely jam-stuffed for stuff to try to toss out what goes, what's important, what stays. Mm-hmm. Were there any other eras that felt a little spot of trouble in determining what to include?
I mean, there was some stuff with like a lot of the post ROTJ stuff. Like I made little mentions to the Jedi Prince series.
Yeah. Dark Greetings.
Yeah, I wasn't gonna read those. I have them. I ordered them off of thrift books for when I did that. But I got through the first couple of chapters. I'm not gonna read these. I will just do a brief nod to them.
Come on, we got Jabba the Hutt's father. He's got dreadlocks. What more could you ask for?
I think didn't Zorba appear in the
he appeared
the Han
in
Solo novels too?
Yeah, and he was referenced in quite a lot of material actually throughout the EU. Just references at the very least to him. Yeah.
And Stover tried to band-aid Jedi Prince by saying in Shadows of Mindor that when Black Hole was with the prophets of the dark side, he would actually predict accurate predictions, and so so people built trust into them, and then eventually Black Hole bailed, and so they just started making stuff up, which is why there's such silly things in the Jedi Prince series. But they'd already built a rapport with people, so they were trusted, even though they were
Stover's genius, of course, shining through as it often does.
He also has the Mandalorian from the Marvel comics in that.
Vengeance is in it, and then Nick Ross too.
That's right, from Shatterpoint.
Right,
Shatterpoint, and Carvaster.
Yeah,
he shows up.
Yeah,
which that was like a complete left field. I was not expecting that at all when I had read that novel. I was like, "Whoa, wait, what?"
Probably a really hard question for you. But I was going to ask you, Tad, who's your favorite character in the EU? If you had to pick one.
Other than Tad himself.
No, well, he's fanon, but it changes. That's the problem. It changes with what I could pick out. That's why I like doing like my top 10 videos that I've done a couple. Like I'll pick out characters from different like things I've read, but I can't like give a full-on favorite 100% favorite character. Like I like a bunch of different characters for a bunch of different reasons.
Probably 10 to 20 just pops to my mind whenever I think of like favorite Star Wars characters. Just so many immediately like just pop into my head. You know,
well, that's the thing. I'll list off a couple, and then somebody will mention another character. I'm like, "Oh my god!" You know.
Yeah, I forgot about this favorite character or this one. Yeah, there's just so many to choose from in the tapestry that was the expanded universe. Yeah. Someone said in the comments, "No Mandalorians, Tad."
No Mandalorian. Well, that's a challenge.
Yeah.
All right. Let me name some favorite non-Mandalorian characters. Well, Marn Hiragriff I'd already talked about.
Great one.
So I guess no clone characters either because they're technically Mandalorian.
Yeah. Would Fordo be up there for you?
Boy.
Of course, with your first channel having.
Oh yeah, he's up there.
Yeah, he's so cool.
I mean, like, yeah, he's cool because he does all this actiony stuff, but we know nothing about him other than he's a clone.
He's just his character's main trait that he has going for him is just rule of cool, but somehow that's enough to where when I think of clones, he's up there in the mix. You know, it's pretty wild.
I do really like General Grievous because his whole like backstory.
Right? Yeah,
he was my favorite bad guy for a while.
People really expanded on him, I think, right, with some online material. I think it was Pena, yeah, which really just adds layers to the character, which is great stuff.
Yeah, and then Star Wars Visionaries shows us how he became the way he was.
And of course, Clone Wars 2003, the original, the real Clone Wars, just makes him so much of a powerhouse. So intimidating. He's a Jedi killer. In the Republic comics,
he felt like an actual threat.
Yeah.
Whereas in Revenge of the Sith, you're like, why is this guy a threat again?
The villain of the week is what it feels like, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. I do. Let's see. I mean, I like.
What about a top 5?
A top 5.
A little easier.
Oh man, that does makes it harder. That makes it harder.
Okay.
I need like a top 28, but then we'll also be here all damn night, and I'm sure you folks have to go to bed at some point, and so will I. And I also want to play Revan's Revenge before I go to work. Let's see. Oh, I was just thinking. But he's a Mandalorian. I was like, oh.
This truly is a hard challenge.
If you really want a Mandalorian, you could do it.
Yeah, we'd love to hear your favorite Mando.
No, I have to stick with the challenge. I have to stick with the challenge. I do like Thrawn, and I was actually just listening to somebody made a fan what do you call it? Reading, I guess, of Missed Encounters. Right. And I enjoyed that a lot.
Good little short story.
But I feel like that's like saying Thrawn, Mara Jade, or like normie answers.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if that's how you feel, that's how you feel, you know. It doesn't, you have to feel like you have to make a unique take. If your heart's truly with Thrawn, then you can stick with Thrawn. It's okay.
Well, we'll keep him on there.
Okay.
I do think he was in my top 10 video too. I actually I've been reading. I reread the Republic comics a couple months ago, and I really liked Iako Stark. Actually, with how slippery he is.
Yeah.
And I know there's more comics with him in them, and I want to find them and read them. I do know he gets turned into a giant spider at some point. And I don't know. I just thought he was interesting how like he was the big bad for this entire comic arc, and then he ends up just turning himself in, and then becomes one of the heads of the Commerce Guild. It's like, why does the bad guy get away with it at the end?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like characters like that. I like characters that are slippery, that are like not your normal like archetype, that just like get away with things that normal people can't get away with. But then I also like, noble and good characters as well.
Yeah.
But it all depends on how I'm feeling. It all depends on what I'm reading. I'll be like, oh, I like this character a lot, or like, I don't really like this character.
I hate when people ask me who my favorite Star Wars character is, because I'm just thinking, oh boy, I'm about to make myself seem like the biggest nerd of all time and scare this person off.
I've got 25,000 years of
Solo
history
for
to
me.
go through.
Yeah, I'm like, all right, we will start with Dawn of the Jedi. I like Seknos Wrath. Now we will move on. Yeah, just all the way through.
Dawn of the Jedi. There's a favorite character possible in those.
Whoa, I like Dawn of the Jedi, Mister.
Yeah.
It's not Lenore Brock. Not her.
Okay. Yeah, not her.
Yeah.
Okay, just the main character of the book. Yeah.
There are some problems I have with Dawn of the Jedi because it conflicts a little bit with KOTOR.
Yeah.
But, other than that, I didn't think it was bad.
Yeah.
But I
like pretty much everything Ostrander wrote in the EU. You know.
Yeah, I like John Ostrander too.
Yeah.
How about favorite trilogy or series or novel in the EU? Give him another hard one. We got the tight questions.
Never gonna come on this channel ever again. Yeah. He's got all the hard hitting questions.
I did a top 10 videos on this too. I think.
Yeah.
I remember saying the Republic Commando novels, obviously, because that was my gateway, and clones and all that, Mandos and all that stuff. Really, anything by James Luceno and Matt.
That's a solid answer.
And I like Stackpole a lot too. I like the X-Wing series.
Oh yeah. Did you prefer Stackpole's X-Wings to Alston's overall?
I thought Alston did a pretty good job, like kind of continuing it a little bit, like with Starfighters of Adumar.
Oh yeah.
That's a good one.
And then he did that later Wraith Squadron one too,
Mercy
right?
Kill.
Yeah. Mercy Kill, yeah. I liked that too.
We got a Vong good guy on the team. That was crazy.
That was pretty cool.
I think he does a good job, like playing off of what Stackpole wrote and kind of making it, feel like you can read the Alston books and the Stackpole books and not be like, okay, I know this is Stackpole without looking at the cover, or I know this is Alston without looking at the cover.
I mean, other than the different cast, but they write very similar.
Yeah, but and like for comics, really, I like a lot of the later Dark Horse, not like later, not towards the end of the franchise, but like a lot of like the 2000s era stuff.
Yeah, it was just
so much good.
Gold after gold. They couldn't stop printing absolute heat off of their press.
For like from 1998 to like 2000, what, 10 or 12?
Yeah,
I think
that's what I would say too. That was just an era right there where they couldn't print a bad comic.
They just didn't miss.
No.
Yeah. It was just all of it was good. I miss that Dark Horse logo, and
I guess that one random
harder and
issue
harder to find those Dark Horse Star Wars trade paperbacks and single issues in comic shops are out and about now. I
guess the only dud would be that one issue from Republic very early on that was like completely random and has nothing to do with the rest of the series.
The one with the anime looking Jedi.
Yeah, the guy that never shows up again. Yeah, Star Crash. And shows up nowhere else in the EU.
I appreciated the early stuff with Ki-Adi-Mundi just because it gave us some insight into Ki-Adi-Mundi. But they were those comics were so bizarre, and the art style, I was
effing Mon, just like a big deal for no reason,
And you just got like this muscled up Ki-Adi-Mundi. I'm like, why are you trying to make Ki-Adi-Mundi the least sexy Jedi to be sexy? I don't get it.
I also love to
turn him into like a He-Man looking guy in that comic.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, maybe he used to look like He-Man, back in the day. He was big and swole. And then
by the time he got on the council, he didn't have time to go to the gym.
He was too busy worrying about the Wookiees to worry about going to the gym.
Exactly.
Enjoyed attack on the Wookiees.
Yeah. But yeah, there was some good stuff in the early Republic comics. I enjoyed when we got Ashrad Het and the Dark Woman and got into that stuff. All of that was just
once Quinlan Voss got introduced.
Then reason for the name of the channel. Yeah, of course.
And then all the stuff with Aura Singh too, like giving this
Yeah.
weird background character in Phantom Menace like a whole shtick too.
The idea
She's honestly
of
one of the
former,
coolest bounty hunters in Star Wars.
a former
But you wouldn't
Jedi
know it by
turned
watching
bounty
the films.
hunter is a really cool idea
Mhm.
that they made for this character that they crafted.
She was
for
like the
this
Grievous before Grievous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they brought her back again in Legacy.
Yeah.
Right. That was
That's
really
right.
cool, actually.
Yeah. Legacy of the Force.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they kind of missed an opportunity going back to Kiadi Mundi, because there was an offhand mention, like I told you, I reread all the Republic comics a couple months ago, and towards the later comics, there's an when they got into the Clone Wars, there was a offhand mention of the Battle of Saria and all of Kiadi Mundi's family dying.
Yeah.
And I was like, wouldn't that have been a story worth exploring?
Absolutely. There's little nuggets like that where it just adds so much meaning to stories you've read earlier. It's just like, well, what was the point? All these low birth rates that they have, and Kiadi keeping his daughter safe, and fighting for his wives, which was a little weird, but okay.
Well, they got a low birth rate.
They just get decimated. That's cool. The EU doesn't forget plot threads, though. It never did.
Also, they brought that back.
They always followed up.
I think it was either Karen Travis or Karen Miller. I forget which. I think it was Karen Travis and No Prisoners. Unfortunately, tied to TCW, but also it's the only one. It's the only thing connected to TCW I really enjoy, because she makes it good. And there's a part where that is the one with Pelion, and Pelion tells Ahsoka to wear some clothing on his ship. I was like, yes, let's go.
Let's
make a portrait, not dress like that.
Why couldn't we have seen that as an animated? That a little animated short of that exchange between Pelion and that character would have been better than the entire show.
Yeah, on that though, there's a because it has Luke's future love interest,
Callista.
Callista in it. She's also in the Republic Commando books, which I believe to this day that had Travis not left, she would have given us the origin story of her becoming a computer, which I would have loved to see. I told Barbara Hamley at Legends Con 1 that she was in it, and she was surprised that Callista was in those books, because I don't think she's read them, but she was like, that's really cool though, I'm glad. But I was going to say that with that, I think there's a conversation between Callista or her master, or whoever, I forget, talking to Anakin, and he brings up Kiadi Mundi, he's got kids and a wife, and he's still a good guy. Why can't I have that?
To those comics, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a piece of continuity right there to those.
And it's so crazy that Anakin appears in a book with Callista, who later becomes his son's lover.
Yeah, that is a bit awkward. It's a
little weird.
But I'm surprised in the new canon they haven't pushed Ahsoka with Luke yet.
I don't want to think about that.
Oh, that's not a fun thought experiment.
I could see Filoni doing that. I could see it.
I wouldn't put it past him.
My OC has to fall in love with Luke.
He's a rascal. He's a rascal.
It's actually all George Lucas's idea, I tell you. He always planned for it that way.
Yeah. Am I listening to an interview with Dave Filoni right now, or am I on a stream with Manda-LORE and Alex? It was so realistic.
Let me get my cowboy hat.
Yeah. But so the expanded universe is pretty great.
I don't mean to interrupt. The comments are going off about I think the different verses in the EU, like with the Reeves verse and Denning verse. And I see, of course, Jason is getting mentioned, and somebody mentioned me, because I know how strongly I feel about Jason Solo and how much I support the story after.
How did you feel?
How did you feel about
Dark Nest and Legacy of the Force? Did you feel that it handled Jason's arc well? Because I've always enjoyed it myself, but seems to be a controversial one within the wider fandom.
So what was weird to me was I feel like they were setting up Anakin to fall to the dark side, not Jason.
I
And
agree.
then the whole thing with George Lucas and them having them kill off Anakin and Jo. I feel like that kind of mucked things up where they were kind of heading
definitely
in for the direction they wanted to take that character. I think it was a little bit out of character to make Jason fall to the dark side and all. It felt a little forced, but I think what was the greater travesty was trying to make Vergere a Sith.
Yeah, I will say to that, I've talked about this numerous times, and this is about you, so I won't stay too long. There is if we're talking about in universe, we really only have Lumaya's word and a few other Sith who claim that she was something. But the thing is, we never get Vergere's direct voice.
No, because she dies at Ebok 9 before we get.
And we don't get like a flashback or anything. So until I'm given like explicit proof from her lips, because everybody speaks for her, but we never actually get her direct point of view because she's never very.
And she's such a confusing character that she's debate about her
on purpose.
Yeah, debate about her from in-universe characters where some people might think she is and some people might think she isn't. Kind of makes sense that it would spin off of her.
I think the Jedi versus Sith guide by Ryder Wynnum, I think did it as best it could, where some people thought she was this, some people thought she was that, but at the end of the day, what we know for absolute certainty is that she had a very big influence on Jason Solo.
Mm-hmm.
I think we can just leave it at that, because there's no... Other than Denning outside of the novels themselves and like interviews saying that she's a Sith, there's no proof in the text that she is.
No. And then Lumaya is untrustworthy, so...
Exactly. It's an unreliable narrator. She just has to get Jason to even consider it.
Yeah.
The entire plot structure of that is what makes Jason a little bit more unique from other Sith is that Lumaya wants Jason under the impression, like, the entire story about this Sith that never did any evil, that just kind of like lived his life and died. The whole point of that is, look, Sith and Jedi, you already believe in the unifying force. You learned this in New Jedi Order. There's so much more than light and dark. It's all unifying. It's more than that. So you can use the dark side. You don't have to become a Sith. Sith is just an ideology. You can be above that. So if she can get Jason to believe that the person that had the biggest influence on his life, Vergere, that she was a Sith, when she clearly didn't act like one, well, then maybe he could do it too for the greater good and not become his grandfather, which I think is compelling. I do think there is a bit of a flaw in terms of the trajectory of his character. It definitely seemed that was not the way they intended for him to go, but I think they handled it well considering what happened. I do think, I'll get off of this, but I do think Jason is an inherently kind of inconsistent character. If you go from Young Jedi Knights to New Jedi Order, it's a 6-month time span, and he acts nothing like he does in Young Jedi Knights. It's because Salvatore didn't read those books. But that being said, it's still jarring if you're reading back to back those stories. But at least with Darkness to Legacy of the Force, there's a time gap where it's more believable for me to accept that he's acting different.
Right. Well, there are some beautiful moments with Jason in Legacy of the Force. Like one of my favorite moments
brought me to tears.
Is when he's in the Jedi Temple and he's walking back to Order 66, Operation Nightfall, and that gave me goosebumps. I was like, whoa.
And what I loved about that is, we've talked about the sequels, and of course we don't want to talk about that because that doesn't exist. But at the same time, Kylo Ren is this fanboy of his grandfather. Jason, he's 30-something by the time of Legacy of the Force. Anakin succumbed to the dark side at like 20. Jason has been through more in his entire life than Anakin ever had been. Even the Clone Wars is nothing compared to New Jedi Order and the Vong War. Nothing.
Well, that was an almost apocalyptic event.
Exactly.
It was like Ragnarok of the EU.
Exactly.
Like so many planets are destroyed, and
like that. They're still like that. Like even by
Legacy. They made sure to make us feel the impacts, didn't they?
But so Jason, he's not super prideful, but at the same time, it's like, I've been through more than my grandfather was. I'm more wise than he was when he fell. He fell because he was selfish. I'm doing what I'm doing because I'm selfless.
Well, Jason had been training for longer than him too, because Anakin didn't start until he was 9.
Yeah.
And Jason had been doing it all his life.
Yeah. So I think that's also part of it, that Jason just feels that he's stronger than his grandfather, that he can handle that responsibility and not succumb. But I think part of the thing is, I think what the series does do well is that early on he seems really sympathetic, and you almost kind of understand him. And it's like slowly but surely, as he like gives into the dark side, it's like he doesn't even notice it, but it's subtly like changing his decisions, because he originally did everything to save his uncle. And then by like book 6 or 7, he's like, I want to kill my uncle. That's not a contradiction. That's on purpose. His priorities have changed. Sorry, I'm a Jason Solo apologist, so that's my bad. No, I gotta get off of this. This is about Mandalore, not.
No, it's fine. I like hearing this stuff too, and other people's sides, because I could just be in a dark room alone. Well, not dark, because how could I read in a dark room? But a room alone and reading all this stuff, and
surely the heads-up display on your helmet would provide a light.
Yeah,
right.
Just like, how do other people feel about this stuff?
Yeah.
Because there might be things that I like that other people don't like, or things that I don't like that other people like.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm gonna come out now myself and reveal myself as a huge Ahsoka. No, I'm just kidding. I won't go that far.
Not that much of a heretic.
And just the differing perspectives on things too. It's not just black and white. Like
very true.
A lot of the earlier stories.
It's not black and white. She's very morally gray. Yeah. Lastly, on her, I absolutely agree with you. She's not a Sith, and I hate that Denning ever said that. I like Denning, but that was stupid. I do think she's nuanced. I don't think she's a Jedi.
Right there on that one.
Yeah, I don't think she's a Jedi, but I don't think she's a Sith. I have a very nuanced take on the entire New Jedi Order and the stories set after, but I think she very much had this view of the Force, that there is no light or dark, and that if you become like a Darksider, it's just because there's something wrong with you. Not that the dark side can actually influence you, which I think the EU shows is not the case. And so she tried to teach that to Jason, and she wanted Jason to usher in this new era of Jedi, is what I think her mindset was. And Lumaya kind of corrupted what she wanted for him. I definitely don't think that's what she intended for him. But I can definitely see an angle being put to make him be sympathetic to the view that he ends up taking.
What do you think?
And I'll drop it there.
Vergier is, Tad? Where do you think she lies on the?
She's fried chicken when she's in the fryer.
Well, when you live with a culture like the Yuuzhan Vong for so long, I do think, and who knows what she was thinking, because there were rescue attempts to find her, like in Outbound Flight.
Right.
Yeah. That's Obi-Wan and Anakin's mission, is to try to figure out what happened to Vergier.
And in Rogue Planet too.
In Rogue Planet, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I was trying to think, because there was another one. It was Rogue Planet. That was the one where they were actually trying to figure out what happened.
And Outbound Flight did mention her as well.
Yeah. I think Outbound Flight takes place after, though.
Yeah. I think.
And if only they had known how close they were, because she was on. I think she got captured on Zanama Seacot. So, but I definitely not a Sith.
Yeah,
maybe
she's one of the most nuanced characters, like Kreia is, where they're both very complicated characters, but they really make you think.
Kreia is definitely Sith, though.
Well, yeah, but they're both very complex. But
she just makes you think about what a Sith actually is. Yeah.
I don't think it's unfeasible. Is that a word? Infeasible. I'm crafting new vocab here. But I don't think it's unlikely, I should say, that Vergier was a Jedi who perhaps even fell into the dark side during her years of torment and capture. Perhaps even not Sith, but definitely went through times where she perhaps channeled dark side, because she seems to have an intimate understanding of it. So I think it's not unlikely to think that she definitely teetered on that edge back and forth like a pendulum, and found herself just down in the middle. But one thing I always think about is the Yuuzhan Vong, of course, can't be sensed by the Force. They exist outside of it. So she can't really get any insights into their minds, how they think, using the Force. She can't influence them at all. So, you know, she's really spending time being captured by dampeners to the Force all around her. So you can really see how she could easily get cynical to the light side of the Force without being a Sith. You know, years of imprisonment will probably do that to even a wise old bird.
By traitor, you know, because she wanted Jason to be a gardener. But I just think that the ideas that she held could lead to problematic things that we see later on. So that's why I think it's more of a logical step of where Jason ends up going. Like, I think it's even conceivable before Anakin dies that that's something that could happen. I just think like another series in between, like after Darkness, like I would have loved Jude Watson to take up the reins and give me a Jason and Ben Skywalker little series like Jedi Apprentice, just kind of evolving Jason's character more. So that way, by the time you get to Legacy of the Force, you're just like absolutely accepting of that direction.
But this turned into a thorough deep dive and analysis on Jason and Vergier.
No,
anytime it gets mentioned, I freak out.
I think that Star Wars rabbit holes are so easy to fall through. As evidenced by that you went out of your way to purchase this awesome Mando suit. The rabbit holes will get you. You've become engrossed in specific windows of the Star Wars universe, you know. And I think we've covered quite a few of them. One of your video series that I enjoyed a while ago, Tad, that I wanted to bring up real quick, perhaps before we might need to get going shortly, because we've been going for a while. We don't want to wear you out too much.
Yeah.
This will turn into a live stream as long as the Star Wars timeline if we're not careful. But I enjoyed your Star Wars bio videos that you did, particularly one you did on Quinlan Voss. Which of course
that's an old one. That one needs to be redone.
That I enjoyed it when I discovered it, and I think you did Dala as well, if I recall.
That was my first, technically second ever video, because the first one I did was so bad I took it off. Dala was the first ever video that I did that I kept up.
Gotcha. Wow. Well, and then I can't remember all the characters through as you went through for Star Wars bio, but I really enjoyed those ones. So thank you for making them. Are there any other characters that would jump to your mind if you were to ever make future Star Wars bio videos? Any other characters that you'd want to cover the most?
Oh, I already have a list, and then my next video, the one that's coming Wednesday, won't be a bio because that's already done. But the next video I'm in the process of writing is going to be a biography. I took a break from those for a while because I got so worn out with the Rogue Squadron videos that I was just like, I need to take a break from doing these bios.
Yeah,
that's fair.
But no, there's definitely more biography videos coming, and I want to do a couple more battle analysis videos as well. Those are fun to do.
Those are cool, yeah.
Those were really what dominated the YouTube scene for a long time. The verses, you know, I remember being a kid going on my grandma's iPad in like 2015, and you know, Corey's datapad and many others. Just the versus videos were so fun.
Right.
Oh, Jensari won. I like his videos.
Right, Jensari.
If I could collab with anyone, it'd be him. I want to collab
Evan
with
Nova or Nova. Evan Nova.
That's right. Yeah.
That guy.
Yeah, he had good ones too.
They're very much into the Force though, and they're into the you know, like the martial arts aspect of the Jedi.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm more into like history and politics and like you know, like weapons and equipment and ships and stuff.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of the EU too, though, isn't it? Like all the niches you can have within it.
Yeah.
Like there are people who like know all the ship designs and gun designs and tell you which is better and what's worse. And I'll tell you, I can't tell you for the lick which is better or which worse because I've never dived that deep into it. Nor do I.
There's one guy who comments on my
history,
channel named Die Jedi Ghostfish or something, and he could probably tell you down to the engine specifications. He
yeah
knows the ins and outs of it, and that's so cool. There's something for everyone in the expanded universe, and the nice thing is that with 37 some years that they had before being gone, they definitely made a lot of it for us to enjoy as well, which you really see when you look at something like your Star Wars timeline. When you look at it, you just see how sprawling it really is.
Yeah.
Just the amount of content. This is a rich history. And I think you really realize that when you look at your series that is finally complete.
But I'm going back because I just can't leave well enough alone.
Complete with an asterisk. Yeah. More stuff to come. Yeah.
Well, it's like George Lucas. I'm making special editions.
Special editions, right?
I gotta make special editions. I may have gone too far in a few places.
yeah. But if there's anything else that
what's the other one you always ask? I don't know if it's you or if it was Stevie B who used to ask this question, but I think it's a fun one. Tad, what would be if you were a Jedi or Sith, whatever?
But he's a Mando though.
Yeah, right. Okay, well then dark saber, but that's from TCW, so we're not going to talk about that.
Controversial.
What would be your lightsaber color?
I'd have to go with like orange or something, like Plo Koon and Jedi Power Battles, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, right.
I haven't played the remaster yet, but I remember playing it on the PlayStation 1. I think he had an orange lightsaber. I'm pretty sure.
So if Tad was to pick up a lightsaber, it would be orange.
It would have to be orange, yeah.
He could be like Badakai. He could be a Mandalorian Jedi.
Which matches the color coordination, right?
Yeah.
with the armor, yeah.
I just don't think we see a lot of orange lightsabers.
That's true.
Yeah, that is true.
We'd see mostly blue and green, purple from time to time. And then
even yellow, probably more.
Yellow, definitely in a lot of the Old Republic stuff, yeah. And then I think Corran Horn has a silver one, right?
Yeah, I think someone commented on that earlier on this very live stream. It was an extendable lightsaber that he used in his fight with Shideo Shea, for example.
Right.
It's a dual phase, so you can change the length of the blade.
So cool.
Yeah,
and
I think even Loey has a bronze one, if I remember correctly.
Lobaka?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So there was definitely more lightsaber colors back then, and they've been showing that in the new media. There's been a lot more than just your standard blue and green.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. I really don't know why George decided to just do the blue and green. Maybe it was just because that's all there was in the original trilogy. I don't know.
Yeah, probably. But then Samuel Jackson came in. He's like, I want purple.
Or so maybe the animators just didn't want to render all those different colors.
That's probably true.
Well, it's
during like the arena scene or like all the other scenes where there's like several hundred Jedi on screen.
Yeah, I know. I was about to say that in Geonosis, when you just see this huge scene and everyone uses blue and green, then EU fans are like, there's several other Jedi around at this time that have way more than just blue and green.
But in the Republic comics, you see like Kiari-Mundi had a purple one.
Yep.
And
there's orange ones floating around with like Plo, and I think Tyvoka had orange. Right. Did he have orange or yellow?
I think he had yellow.
Yellow, yeah.
And then Ayla had pink. Kind of call back to Leia when she had a pink lightsaber briefly.
So true. And the Dark Woman had
the Jedi had red lightsabers.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah,
Asherad had red.
Asherad had a red one.
Yeah. Yeah. Those comics were fun. It was a fun era of Star Wars. With all of
and
those.
then like once you get out of 98 into post Attack of the Clones, everybody just says blue and green.
Yeah. The war
They
made
got
them
lazy
all
with
want
the
to
colors.
the war made them all want to assume a more unified color scheme going forward.
Yeah, less individual.
Yeah.
You know?
Less individualism, more we're the sword of the Republic.
Yeah.
After that. But I don't know if there's anything else you want to talk about. I'm sure we could fall down some more rabbit holes and just
Oh, yeah, I
spend
could talk
hours.
all
I could
day.
talk to Tad forever, but we gotta let this man go. He's gotta go do
he's
other
got a
things.
date with Empire at War.
Yeah.
Specifically, Revan's Revenge. Did you say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's fun so far.
Yeah,
And
we were talking, I think, backstage about how it has all the sound effects, or was that on stream? I don't remember, but all the sound effects of KOTOR have been kind of re-implemented into it,
and it's scripted too. So there's like cut scenes and everything. Like they went all out with it. I'm excited to play it.
Yeah, that's so cool. Yeah, so cool.
Yeah.
So, thank you so much for coming on today.
Oh, thanks for having
Absolutely.
me.
Thanks for all the work you've done and the hours of entertainment you've provided me in watching your channel over the years.
Sorry you wasted your life on my stupid videos.
I've grown up with your videos. I mean, I can't believe they're stupid. I have to believe they're great because otherwise it's all the time wasted.
I am
both
flattered and terrified every time you do tell me that you grew up with my videos.
Oh no, we're gonna make you feel old before long.
I'm only 30.
It's okay. I hear 30 is the new 20. So
it doesn't feel like it.
Oh no,
no.
Don't tell me that. On his way.
It's all downhill from here. You wake up and you're like, "Oh, did I sleep on my neck wrong?" And then you think, "Oh, it's just gonna go. The hurt's gonna go away," but it just doesn't. That's your life now. You just hurt.
Oh boy, a lot to look forward to then.
Yep.
But everybody wants to be an adult till they're an adult, and then they want to go back.
Yeah.
I never wanted to be an adult, hence why I dress up in plastic.
That's
fair. That's why I have that's why I have an entire library dedicated to just one fictional property that is about space wizards throwing brightly colored swords at each other and using magic.
I see a disc version of Empire at War. I see
right here. Yeah. Sadly,
I see what other games I see.
Yeah, I have some here. I have Elite Squadron on the PSP. I have some Nintendo Switch stuff up here. Yeah, lots of fun Star Wars video games out there. I hope the Switch is going to keep releasing kind of an archive of Star Wars games and just port them all.
Didn't they have JKA on there recently, or was it Outcast, or was it both?
Yeah,
I think so.
They have the last 2 out of the 5 Dark Forces games. So Jedi Knight and Jedi Knight 2, rather Jedi Knight 2 and Jedi Knight Jedi Academy, being games 4 and 5 in that series. They did KOTOR, KOTOR 2, The Force Unleashed, Republic Commando, Bounty Hunter.
Yep, I have that one. I have the Republic Commando remaster.
I wonder what about Bounty Hunter appeals so much to you, Tad.
We can only guess.
I played that originally on the GameCube.
Oh yeah, right.
Oh, I love the GameCube.
And GameCube is such a fun era of just the look. The look is so fun. Well, I just love it.
What I liked about it was it came with the Open Seasons comics. You could unlock them and view them. I could never read them because my TV was tiny that I was playing.
No. Yeah. So you had like the art but couldn't read the word bubbles?
Yeah, it was like a tiny little TV. Like it was like the screen had to be like 6 inches by 6 inches back when aspect ratio was square.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh man. Back when TVs could kill you.
If they fell on you, yeah.
Yeah. Big boxes, yeah.
Yeah, I have 2 big box televisions in my closet, all for retro stuff like NES. Plug that into there. I know you can adapt it to the modern flat
I'm sure
screen.
you can find a flat screen with AV cables.
Yeah,
somewhere.
it's fun. The box, the vibes are fun, you know, to that era, bygone, I guess, bygone era.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Sadly,
GameCube
we're all
games. There
getting
were some
older.
other ones, that the Rogue Squadron games, for example, which kind of were spin-offs of X-Wing and TIE Fighter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Except X-Wing and TIE Fighter were, I think, better in my opinion because they were more flight simulator-y.
Right. Rogue Squadron eventually went with some third-person combat, didn't it?
Yeah, and I remember there being like you were on the ground too as Wedge Antilles on Geonosis fighting battle droids. I remember that was a sequence.
Yeah.
And I was like, why am I outside of a starfighter? This is not
why I got this game. Yeah.
I think that was Rogue Squadron 3.
Right. And
Sounds
the
right.
latter two, I think, were GameCube exclusive. I think. Yeah. It would be cool if they would just port all of those eventually. It's been nice. Like my younger cousin has a Nintendo Switch and he got the Star Wars Heritage Pack, which was 10 games. So he's been discovering the EU through his Nintendo Switch. He's been sending me daily messages, daily videos, asking me for tips in getting through KOTOR. So he's like 8 or 9 and discovering KOTOR for the first time, and it's been really, really cool. He's been really enjoying it. Having my younger cousin say Zalbar to me or tell me which of the Republic commandos is which was just like the proudest moment I've ever felt.
I would be so mean to him though. I'd be like, "Oh, go fight that Rancor. Don't pay attention. Don't pay attention to that food pile that's over there."
He just got by that the other day. He said he was terrified, and he was like, as soon as he beat it, he was like, "I'm never doing that again." The first thing he did was save it as soon as it died.
Well, no, you could just walk past it if you like get the food out. So
yeah.
I can't remember exactly, but
it
was something I did like.
There.
Yeah, it was something I did like 30 times before I realized I can just walk past it.
Yeah. I know. Yeah, those games just make you feel
like you're in the world of Star Wars.
Tangent, but they make you feel like you're living in the Star Wars universe. Which is impressive for games to do that to me. I didn't grow up with video games. My mediums were books or movies. So I didn't come into video games until The Force Unleashed, I think, eventually. And Star Wars video games are really the only Star Wars video games I've played. Yeah, that does apply. But yeah, the Star Wars video games, surprisingly, for someone who's terrible at video games like I am, it took me 3 months to beat The Force Unleashed on easy. I would be playing it like every day. I'm terrible at video games. But again, I want to explore every little corner and crevice of the world because it really is fun to interact with it in that way. You know,
it's a side tangent, but that's something that's beautiful about video games that you just can't really replicate with novels or movies or TV shows. It's the interactivity
experience to you.
It's that you are a part of it. You know, it's interactive medium. It's you get all of the senses. You get the movie aspect. You get the cutscenes. You get sometimes you get written stuff. Depends on the game you're playing, and then you're there. You're playing it. So it's like the amount of immersiveness in that is something that you just can't be replicated anywhere else.
Yeah, the twist you get with Revan just was. I can't imagine what it would have been like to experience that. I'd had it spoiled for me, of course, but the original experience for having your character turn out to be the bad guy all along, cool.
I accidentally spoiled it for my wife because she was interested in playing it, and she's like, "Oh, I saw some fan art the other day of like of Revan, but it was a she," and I was like, "Oh, well, it's a BioWare game, so you can you could pick whatever gender you want," and she's like. So wait, she's like, so wait, are you Revan? And I'm like, oh, I gave it away. Yeah.
Yeah, that's up there with I'm your father. Like that's
one of the top twist moments in Star Wars, I'd say.
I mean, not even just from a story perspective, it makes sense of the gameplay. It's like now you have to relearn everything. You have to learn how to be a Jedi, right? But
it's a great excuse to have to learn your force powers again. Yeah.
But it happens really quick. That's the thing. And it's like, well, it's a video game. So they're not going to make you spend years doing it. but you already know it. That's why you do it so quick. It's just, it's a beautiful, there's a term in video game essays on YouTube called ludonarrative dissonance, where the gameplay doesn't match the story. Like Nathan Drake is like Indiana Jones, and he, is meant to be this adventurous, treasure seeking guy, but he guns down like 300 men throughout the game. So it's like there's a little bit of a psychopath if you're looking at it that way.
Right.
But ludonarrative harmony is when the gameplay and the story work in tandem together perfectly, and that's something that I think KOTOR does really well. Is making that both work together to make something perfect.
That's really cool. I didn't know there were names for that. This has been a lesson of Magneto University. I feel smarter now for it. You're welcome to everyone in the live chat. You have been blessed with knowledge. I did see someone commented, "What a coincidence, Tad. My husband also spoiled it for me. I didn't know it was a spoiler at the time, though. Till I found the KOTOR community." So, yeah, it's not really a great kept secret nowadays. But I imagine that original reveal was something else. I guess before we go, another question sprung to mind for Tad. What's your favorite Star Wars video game? I have a guess at where it's
gonna be Empire at War.
Yeah,
because I've been modding it since I was in high school. So
yeah, and from what I've been told, it's a very easy to mod game.
I mean,
it's for the community who's involved in it.
In today's standards, yes, because games these days are a lot more complex, and this game being over 20 years old has been picked apart, and to where everybody has a program that can, defrag meg files and stuff and be able to edit things. It's just easier to edit. But if you don't know what you're doing, no, it's not easy. I luckily have experience in doing it. Am I as good as, say, like Corey from Thrawn's Revenge? No, obviously not. But I get by. Yeah. And I can't do any 3D modeling, so that's one of my biggest hurdles. But the Empire War community is pretty great, and there's a lot of resource sharing. If you're nice enough, most people generally let you use their stuff, as long as you ask and give credit. And then there's a good amount of free release stuff as well. But
I've seen the Vong War one, and I was very impressed by how much is in there.
The Yuuzhan Vong at War has been in development for years. I think it's dead, but there's another mod called Age of Legends that brings a lot of Yuuzhan Vong War stuff into it. Yeah, which I actually used for some of my videos, because one of the challenges when I was doing the New Jedi Order era of my timeline series was the sheer lack of illustrated content.
Right. Yeah.
So luckily, I found that mod and was able to get
from that.
Yeah. Images of battles and stuff that we never got depicted because we just never did.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's really cool. That it's such an involved part of the fandom that it's really admirable work. Like my friends who are into Empire at War just live and breathe that. Just play it all night long. Just
yeah,
really cool. So
yeah. Thank you so much for dedicating almost 3 hours to us.
Oh yeah, well, thanks for having me on. Like I said, I'm down for. I love doing podcasts. I love promoting the expanded universe. It's all good.
You're in good company then.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's all we ever try to do.
Thank you to everyone who's been in the comments. I
know we've been ignoring you. But
sorry that we haven't had time, but thanks to everyone for watching. Make sure, if you haven't already, if you're here, what are you doing?
You somehow don't know about Manda-LORE.
Don't know about Manda-LORE.
Then you need to subscribe immediately.
Shoot, if you're here and not there, then you've made a mistake.
There's something wrong with you.
Make sure to go
from us. Let's subscribe to Manda-LORE.
Make sure to click over to Manda-LORE. And if you've watched all his videos already, take this as a sign. Go watch the timeline again.
The whole thing. We watch this entire catalog again.
Yeah, exactly.
I want a 10-page essay after the fact on every video.
Oh my!
That's your homework.
Wow, we're really getting a lesson today from Alex.
I want to know that you're a true Manda-LORE fan. Okay, I got to know.
But
I'll bring receipts.
It's great content over there. So if you somehow
Absolutely.
haven't checked it out already, make sure to do so. I see this is the perfect way to end off the stream here. So thank you so much for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. And with that said, we'll see you guys some other time. Thanks to everyone who joined the stream and watched it live and commented. Appreciate you all.
Bye-bye.